Today we're going to be learning about how to add and subtract rational expressions. So when you are adding rational expressions or fractions and subtracting fractions, you must have a common denominator. Once you have a common denominator, you can combine the fractions by adding the numerators and keeping the denominators the same. So let's start off with a basic example with two fractions. Notice if we are adding 1/3 plus 7/3, they have the same denominator. So that means what we can do is just add the numerators. So 1 plus 7 all over 3, which will give us an answer of 8 over 3. Now let's try that if we have two rational expressions. So in this first example, our denominators are the same, so we can go ahead and combine the numerators. So I'm just going to write this as 3x plus 2 plus 2x minus 4 all over the same denominator. We don't add the denominators, we just keep it the same. Now let's combine. We have some like terms in the numerator, so the 3x plus 2x is 5x. And the 2 minus 4 is minus 2, all over x plus 4. And there you have your final answer. The one thing you have to be careful of with subtraction is remembering to subtract the entire second fraction. So add parentheses around your second fraction so you don't forget. We have the same denominator, so we can go ahead and combine, but we'll do 5x plus 8 minus all of this, so minus 2x plus 4. Keep your denominator the same. Now you have to remember to distribute this minus sign to both terms inside. So we're going to say this is 5x plus 8. Now it's a minus 2x minus 4. So if you don't add those parentheses in, you're going to forget to distribute the minus sign all over x plus 1. Last up, we combine like terms. So I have a 5x and a minus 2x, which becomes 3x. And I have an 8 minus 4, which becomes minus 4. And I'll keep my denominator the same. And then you have your final answer. Now things get a little trickier when we don't have a common denominator. So we have to change the fractions until they have the same denominator. So what you can do, let's try two examples first. So in this example, 1/2 plus 3/4, well, we know that 2 goes into 4. So all I have to do is convert both of these to have a denominator of 4. I can do that by multiplying this first fraction by 2. Then the denominator becomes 4. So now I have 2/4 plus 3/4, which is 5 over 4. Instead, if I have something like 1/3 plus 4/5, 3 and 5 don't have any numbers in common with each other, so I just multiply by one another. So the fraction with the 3 in the denominator gets multiplied by 5, and the fraction with the 5 in the denominator gets multiplied by 3. Now I can't just multiply the denominators, I have to also multiply the numerators. So remember, I have to multiply by something equal to 1. So I multiply by 5 over 5, which is really like a 1, or I multiply by 3 over 3. Now let's see what we end up with. We have 5 over 15 plus 12 over 15. Notice now we have common denominators, so I can add my numerators. So this becomes 5 plus 12 over 15, which is 17 over 15. Let's try some more examples like this. So in this next example, one has an x plus 2 and one has an x squared minus 4 in the denominator. So I'm going to factor to see if they have any factors in common. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2 over x plus 2. And I can factor this x squared minus 4 because it's a difference of perfect squares. So this becomes 5 over x minus 2 times x plus 2. Now what I'm going to figure out is what is my least common denominator. So my least common denominator, well, they both have an x plus 2, so they'll just need one x plus 2. I also need an x minus 2. Notice my second fraction already has that denominator. So I'm going to try to get my first fraction to also have that denominator. What I'm going to do is multiply. I'm going to have that first fraction, and I'm going to multiply by what it doesn't have. So I'm going to multiply by x minus 2 over x minus 2. And then I'm just going to keep my second fraction the same. So now I have to distribute this. So it becomes 2x minus 4. And now notice I have the same denominator, so I can combine. So plus 5 all over x plus 2 times x minus 2. And in the last step, I'm going to combine like terms. So I have 2x plus 1 over x minus 2, or x plus 2 times x minus 2. And last step, I'm just going to multiply everything out. So I'll re-multiply the denominator out. So I'll get 2x plus 1 all over x squared minus 4. And there's my final answer. Let's try another example. So now this one is subtraction, so let's be careful. My least common denominator here, if I have an x plus 3 and an x plus 2, they don't have any factors in common. So my least common denominator is x plus 3 times x plus 2. Now I'm going to multiply by what they don't have. So this first fraction doesn't have the x plus 2. So I'm going to multiply numerator and denominator by x plus 2. And my other fraction doesn't have an x plus 3, so I'm going to multiply that numerator and denominator by x plus 3. Now let's see what we have. So I have a 5 times x plus 2 all over x plus 2 times x plus 3 minus a 9 times x plus 3 all over x plus 2 times x plus 3. Notice now I have the same denominator, so I can combine. When I combine, I'm also going to distribute these parentheses. So I have 5x plus 10, and now here's where you have to be careful with this minus sign. Right now, I'm just going to kind of put all of this in a big bracket, so I remember I have to subtract the whole thing. So minus, now I'm going to distribute, 9 times x is 9x. 9 times 3 is 27. All over x plus 2 times x plus 3. Now I'm going to distribute this minus sign to both of these terms. So I'm going to rewrite this as 5x plus 10 minus 9x minus 27 all over x plus 2 times x plus 3. Last step, I'm going to combine like terms and multiply out my denominator. So 5x minus 9x is minus 4x. 10 minus 27 is minus 17. And on the bottom, I'm going to FOIL this out. So x squared plus 3x plus 2x is plus 5x. 2 times 3 is plus 6. And there's my final answer. Let's go practice a few more of these so we can really get the idea straight. So the first thing we check is there a common denominator? In this first problem, there is a common denominator. It's x plus 8. So I can just combine the numerators and keep the denominator the same. So I can combine the numerators, and I'm not going to add the denominator. I'm just going to keep it the same. Now I combine like terms. So 3x plus 5x is 8x plus 2 all over x plus 8. Let's try another one. In this second problem, we look at the denominators first. They're the same, so I can combine like terms, but I just have to be really careful because there's a minus sign, so I'm going to put parentheses around this. So I'm going to write this as 4x squared plus 2x minus 2x squared minus 8x all over the same denominator as x minus 3. Now I'm going to distribute this minus sign to both of these terms. This is the part that you'll probably mess up on the most with subtraction. So I have 4x squared plus 2x minus 2x squared. Now minus 8x is a plus 8x all over x minus 3. Last up, I'll combine 4x squared minus 2x squared is 2x squared. 2x plus 8x is plus 10x all over x minus 3. Okay, let's try a next one. Notice now we don't have a common denominator. I'm going to factor to see if I can find a common denominator. So I'm going to factor this x squared minus 9. Remember, that's a difference of perfect squares. So that's an x plus 3 times x minus 3. Plus 4 over x plus 3. Now I look at all the factors. The least common denominator has to represent all the factors. So both of these have an x plus 3, so there's got to be an x plus 3 in there. This first fraction also has an x minus 3, so my least common denominator also has an x minus 3 in there. Now I look. My first fraction already has this denominator, so it's all set. My second fraction is missing out on the x minus 3 part, so I'm going to multiply by x minus 3 over x minus 3. And now let's see what we get. We get x plus 5 over x plus 3 times x minus 3 plus 4 times x minus 3 all over x plus 3 times x minus 3. Now I have a common denominator, so I can combine. I'm also going to distribute this 4. So I have x plus 5 plus 4 times x plus 4 times negative 3 is minus 12 all over my common denominator now is x plus 3 times x minus 3. Lastly, combine like terms and multiply everything out. So x plus 4x gives me 5x. 5 minus 12 gives me minus 7. And now I'm going to FOIL out this denominator. I already know, though, x plus 3 times x minus 3 is x squared minus 9. Or I could FOIL it back out. So there's my final answer. Let's try one more example. Again, we don't have a common denominator, so we have to find one. In this case, my least common denominator, if I have x plus 9 and x plus 2, it's just going to be x plus 9 times x plus 2. So now I need to figure out, what are these fractions missing out on? This first fraction is missing out on an x plus 2, so I'm going to multiply everything by x plus 2 over x plus 2. I'll multiply my second fraction by x plus 9 and x plus 9. When you do this, you have to remember to use parentheses. So please remember to put parentheses around everything. So now I have x plus 2 times 2x plus 1 all over x plus 2 times x plus 9 minus 4x times x plus 9 all over x plus 2 times x plus 9. I have common denominators here, so I can combine. The one thing I have to be really careful about, though, is the minus sign. So again, you might want to put some big brackets around the second one to remember we're subtracting the entire thing. So this becomes x plus 2 times 2x plus 1 minus 4x times x plus 9 all over x plus 2 times x plus 9. Now I have to multiply everything out, combine like terms. So this becomes 2x squared plus x plus 4x is plus 5x plus 2. Now minus 4x times x is minus 4x squared. Minus 4x times 9 is minus 36x. All over x plus 2 times x plus 9. We'll have to FOIL that out too. So we'll get x squared plus 2x plus 9x is plus 11x plus 18. Finally, we have to combine like terms. 2x squared minus 4x squared is minus 2x squared. Plus 5x minus 36x is minus 31x. And plus 2. All over x squared plus 11x plus 18. So look for a common denominator or find one and combine your numerators and keep the denominator the same.